Okay, so welcome back. So, the prerequisites for this training, like I said in my previous video, the desire and curiosity to learn, because if you don't have that, then I don't think you should be spending time here watching this video. If you really want to learn and have the curiosity to understand what is Python, then you are at the right place. Your undivided concentration, of course, I totally need that because understanding each concepts is like it's a link to each other. So even if you miss one topic, then the entire concept might itself be lost somewhere. So make sure that you have your full concentration and you're understanding each and every concepts one by one as we proceed into the training. And if you want to do hands-on with me while the training is going on, then we can install a Python client, just an interactive client, which is more than enough for this training. So we can just go ahead and download it from python.org, or maybe let me just show you that. So we can just go to Python interactive download, and then you can go to this one, www.python.org/downloads. Download this, download Python, and once you download it, it'll just take you through simple GUI for installation where you can just follow step-by-step instructions. Make sure wherever you have the options to check boxes, you check all those boxes so that your environment variables, your path variables, all of them are set up automatically when the installation is going on. Once your install and everything is completed, then you can install the Python IDLE interactive board, which will look something like this. And the very see the cursor being highlighted, it's just ready to start writing your Python code. And if you want to use, if you are used to using an IDE, then you can definitely have one of the IDEs like Visual Studio or IntelliJ or Atom or whichever you prefer. I prefer IntelliJ, and I use the IntelliJ IDE platform because of two reasons. One is I just like the overall look and feel and the easy, I would say, the easy way of navigating through the application. And I have been lately I've started using the so IntelliJ is basically from JetBrains, and they have launched their Jet AI, which is an included package, not an included package, but an included add-in on the IntelliJ, and you can take a subscription for it. But I really like the Jet AI because it helps you to build codes so easily, understand where are your issues, so that you don't have to spend too much time debugging. So if you want, you can install. You can go to Google and search for IntelliJ, and yeah, maybe I can just show you that. Go back to Google here, and then we say IntelliJ download. So you can just go on this JetBrains website here. Yep, and you can install this IDEA IntelliJ IDEA Ultimate. So this product not only allows you to write in Python, but if you want to write in any other language also, it has the plugins available for almost all the languages. A very good tool. I'm not advertising for it, by the way. It's just that I like the tool very much. Okay, so make sure you have these prerequisites completed, and then we are ready to dive into the course. So what are we going to cover in this course? In this course, we are going to look at what are variables, what is the concept of variables, how important is variable in Python language, and I think variable is not just important in Python language, but in any other language also variables hold a lot of weightage. And then we'll understand the operators, and using the operators, how do we do expressions and how do we create sentences. Then we'll look at how do we use those sentences to create instructions, a set of instructions that can be followed by the machine and perform a specific task. Then we'll also look at what are loops in Python, how important are loops, and what kind of functionality they perform, and how do we use the loops. And then we'll also look at what is functions in Python, and how useful are Pythons, and what exactly is the use case, and why do we use functions. Okay. So to start the training, we are going to first cover variables, operators, and expressions. And before we go into the concepts of variables, a very important thing to know is in Python language, it's basically it's about writing instructions in a predefined manner. When I say predefined manner, there is a predefined systematic code, a semantic code that has to be followed. Only then your Python code will work, right? And in order to write those set of instructions, there are some reserved words which are reserved by Python, and these words basically cannot be used for performing a function like using it as a variable. So some of the examples shown here, like is, with, if, else, in, as, for, while, true and false, which is mainly used as a boolean, and then is not. So these are some of the examples of the reserved words, but these words you cannot use. You cannot use these words for performing instructions like for using it as a variables, right? So you cannot use them to create a variable. So but however, whatever function these are reserved words are used for, you can only use it for that purpose. Okay. Now, variables. So a variable is a named location in the memory used for storing data, and the data stored in the variable can be retrieved using the variable name. So when I say memory here, I'm talking about the RAM, your basically your random access memory. So whenever you define a variable and assign a value to it, so what exactly happens is, you know what? Let me do one thing. Let me pull up Paint. This is what I meant by doing doing it a bit interactive and hopefully make it easier for you guys, right? So, for example, just consider this is your RAM memory, right? And say the size of this is let's say this is a 32, yeah, 32 GB, 32 GB RAM memory. Okay. Now in this 32 GB RAM memory, what happens is when you define a variable to use it in a Python code to execute while the execution is happening, the system, the Python code basically requests the system to assign a block within this RAM memory. So a small block within this RAM memory is allocated that variable. For example, if you define a variable by say name xyz, and you say xyz is equal to 10,000, right? So what Python does is it requests the computer's memory, the RAM memory, to allocate a space on the RAM memory and give that the value 10,000 and keep that value stored until we want to use it during the execution, right? And during the execution, we may want to change that value, like we may want to do some kind of calculation and convert 10,000 to 20,000 by adding 10,000 to it, right? So when that calculation happens and the new value is assigned, that new value automatically gets stored into the variable. Okay. A variable name is chosen by the developer or the programmer. The variable name should be meaningful. This is very important, specifically when you're writing huge complex programs. It is very, very important that you define a very meaningful name to your variable so that whenever you're using that variable anywhere in your project, you know what it relates to and you're not confused. The variable value can be changed by performing certain set of instructions. Like I said, if you want to add say 10,000 to a variable which already has a value of 10,000 and convert it to 20,000, you can do all that kind of task with a variable. Now this one, very important, some naming rules that have to be followed. Like this is exactly what I was referring to with the semantic and the systematic rules, right? So we have to make sure that we create a variable name with specific naming rules only, otherwise it will not be a valid variable. A variable name must start with a letter or an underscore. Okay. It must consist of letters, numbers, or underscores. Only these three are allowed: letters, numbers, or underscores. And the variables are case sensitive. Now let's look at the example to understand what exactly we mean. So these are example of a good variable name, which is name, age underscore 123 underscore phone. These are all good examples. A bad example is starting the name with the number like 123 name. This is not, this is a no-no. Then doing like a hash age, again not allowed, or phone dot number. Again, this is not allowed. And case sensitive, what we mean by case sensitive is, you can see here I've written name all in small letters, then a name here with capital letter N and the rest of the letters small, and then a name which is all capital letters. In Python, these three will be three different variables. They won't be treated as the same variable. So even if there is one letter which is different, Python will treat this as different variable. Okay. Variable types. So variables are broadly classified into integers, floating point, and string. Integers are basically your numbers from 0 to any number you take, right? The positive number or a negative number. And then floating numbers are basically your decimal numbers like 10.25, 15.65, whatever these point numbers are there, the decimal numbers, those are all treated as floating numbers. And strings is characters like hello, how are you, hi, what are you doing? All these are strings. Now, Python is intelligent enough to understand the difference between an integer and a string, right? We can assign a variable using the assignment operator. So this operator, which is, oh, you know what, actually, just going back to the previous point, I just want to, the reason why I've specified this statement here that Python understands the difference between integer and string is because if in your program you have defined a variable as an integer, but if you try to use that as a string, or if you have defined a variable as a string and you try to use that as a number, your Python code will throw an error. So if when you're defining the variable for a specific task, it should also be used only for that task. You can't be using it for using it for a different kind of variable value. Okay. Now coming back here, we can assign a variable using the assignment operator. So this assignment operator, which is the equal to sign in maths, in Python, this is not really used as an equal to. The equal to concept does come, but it is more of a operator assignment, which we'll look into later in the modules. But if you're using a single equal to sign, it basically means that you are assigning some value to a variable. For example, x equals to 10 here. So we'll say x assignment operator 10, which means the value 10, the number 10 is assigned to this variable x. The same way if you say y equals to hi, how are you, this string value, and remember string always has to be in inverted commas, so this string value is being assigned to the variable y. Okay, we cannot perform certain operations. What we cannot do is what I just covered here uh, while explaining the difference between integer and string. And yeah, now let's look at an example. So let me bring up my interactive board, and let's say we want to define a equals to 10, and then we say b equals to 20, and then we are saying c equals to a plus b. Okay, now if we want to see how we want to use this, whatever variables we have defined, now how do we want to use it in a program, what we can do is we can use a function in Python which is known as the print function. With the print function, we can print the value of a variable, or we can just randomly print anything we want. For example, I can just do print, open a bracket. The syntax of it is print, open and close bracket, and your message goes inside that, or your variable value goes inside that. So in this case, we'll say just say hello, welcome to our coding kare, and I close the bracket, and if I hit enter, it just prints that hello, welcome to our coding kare, right? Now if I want to use this for printing any of these values, so I can say print a, print b, so it prints b, and if I say print c, it prints 30, which is the addition of a plus b, 10 plus 20, 30. If I want to make it more meaningful, I can say print, and then I can do inverted commas here, and I can say the value of, no, or I can say the sum of the variables a, and variable b is, I can close the inverted comma, and I can say C. Now when I hit enter, see it says the sum of the variable A and variable B is 30. There is another way to write this command where you can define the where you can use this variable, or you can call this variable within the inverted commas, and we'll be using a lot of this. So the example for that is, I'll say print again, but before I open the inverted commas, I'm going to use the f string. We call this using the f string in Python. So with that, what happens is, we'll see now. So we'll say the sum of variable A and variable B is, we'll use the flower bracket, now see what happens here. In this case, what I'm doing is, because I used this string f here, I did not have to define C outside the inverted commas, but to call it inside within the string, this complete string value, I need to use flower brackets. I can just do flower brackets and I can call C here, and the value will be printed within the inverted commas. Okay. All right. So with that, we are done with variables, and we'll move on to operators. So see you guys in the next video.